where the moon lights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your number one fan.
Hey up and welcome back to the Rate Scary podcast. My name is Scary Zara Mary and I am not on my own today. Yay! I have a guest. I have got Sam from Horror, Halloween and Home joining me. Say hello, Sam.
Hey up.
Hey up.
I'm being honorary northern.
Yeah, but you have the most beautiful accent in the world. It completely trumps my Yorkshire accent, so
Oh, thanks.
no problem. It's part of the reason why I invited you on, actually.
So you can listen to me sing-songy talking.
Absolutely. Too bloody right. If you're not familiar with Sam, Sam has the most gorgeous home, hence her username online being Horror, Halloween and Home. Like I've said, the most amazing accent. Lover of films, brilliant film reviews. You've been doing some behind the scenes stuff with some filmmakers recently as well.
Yeah, really exciting. I'm not sure how and why, but I am.
I know how and why, because you're bloody brilliant. So,
Oh, thanks.
but I have also brought you onto this episode because you will be familiar, Sam. But for anyone else who is not familiar with the podcast premise, I am going through horror subgenre by subgenre and delving into it and picking out some films that I think are iconic. And this week we're talking about Gothic horror and we're going to delve into Crimson Peak because it was the most mentioned film when I asked people to name their most loved Gothic horror, closely followed by Bram Stoker's Dracula. And I know that you are a huge fan of Crimson Peak.
I am. I love it. I'm so excited.
So I'm going to try and give an overview of the story of Crimson Peak first of all. And you can correct me if I get any of it wrong because you know it far better than I do. And then we'll discuss some of the details. Does that sound like a bit of a plan?
Yeah.
Excellent. Shout up if I get any of this wrong. Okay. So the story. We are set in 1887 initially in New York. And we have an American heiress, Edith Cushing, who is the daughter of a very, very wealthy man, Carter Cushing. And she is visited by her mother's ghost who warns, beware of Crimson Peak.
Beware of Crimson Peak.
And we then fast forward a few years to 1901. And Edith is now an author. And she meets an Englishman, Baron Sir Thomas Sharp, and also his sister Lucille. And Thomas is looking for investors for an invention of his, which is a digging machine, which he wants to use on his family's clay mines. Now, he goes to Carter Cushing, but he rejects his proposal. And in the process of this going on, Thomas and Edith become romantically involved, leading her father to hire a private detective, because that's what all dads do, who uncover some unsavory facts about the Sharp siblings. So Mr. Cushing bribes them to bugger off and leave America, forcing Thomas to break Edith's heart by disparaging her and also her novel. So Thomas returns Edith's manuscript with a letter explaining his actions and they reconcile. And in the process, Mr. Cushing is murdered, raising suspicions of Edith's childhood friend, Alan McMichael. Thomas then marries Edith, giving her a ring that is taken from his sister Lucille, and they arrive at a place called Allerdale Hall. This is the Sharps' home. It's their completely dilapidated mansion, and it's sinking into the red clay mine below it. And Lucille plies Edith with some tea made from firethorn berries, and Thomas persuades her to put her father's fortune towards his invention, this clay digging machine. Edith begins to notice that Thomas is absent from their shared bedroom during the night, and she is plagued by nightmares, constantly visited by some horrible red ghosts around Allerdale, one of which tricks her into opening a closet where she finds some wax cylinders. before chasing her into the cellars, where she then finds a locked trunk engraved with the name Enola. And soon after this, Thomas tells Edith that the estate is referred to as Crimson Peak due to the red clay from the mine leaching up from the ground and staining the winter snow, turning it bright red. Thomas then takes Edith on a trip to the post office, which we all love, a trip to the post office, for some fresh air after Edith demands to leave, and she receives a letter addressed to E. Sharp. And they are snowed in for the night. They finally make love, but Lucille is infuriated by this. Edith then steals a key from Lucille that has the inscription Enola and manages to unlock the trunk to find a gramophone and some secret documents. And using the gramophone, she listens to the recordings that run the wax cylinders that she finds. And reading the paper documents, Edith learns that Thomas has previously married 3 other very wealthy women, including a woman called Enola, the letter's intended recipient, and that Lucille has been poisoning Edith with tea as part of the siblings' marriage and murder scheme in order to finance Thomas's inventions. So Edith confronts her husband and sister-in-law, catching them in the act, and Lucille pushes Edith from a balcony. Now, while this has been going on, Alan has learned what Mr. Cushing uncovered about the Sharps, Thomas's marriages, Lucille's time in a mental institution, and he travels to Allerdale Hall to try and rescue Edith, arriving just after she's been pushed. So he is trying to look after her, tend to her injuries, and Alan prepares to leave with Edith, but Lucille stabs him and demands that Thomas finishes the job. However, Thomas instead inflicts a stab wound that is non-fatal before hiding him in the cellar away. Lucille forces Edith to sign a deed granting the Sharps ownership of her estate and confesses to having murdered Thomas's previous wives and having borne a child with Thomas that soon died, and it's these wives that are the ghosts who have appeared to Edith. Lucille also admits to murdering Edith's father, as well as her own mother, when she discovered Lucille and Thomas's sexual relationship. Edith stabs Lucille with her pen and flees, but is confronted by Thomas, who has truly fallen in love with her. He burns the deed, begs his sister to join him and Edith in a new life together, but Lucille stabs him to death. She pursues Edith with a cleaver that she used to kill her mother, but is stopped by Thomas's ghost, allowing Edith to kill her with a shovel. Edith silently bids Thomas farewell and he vanishes. And then we end with Edith and Alan rescued by the villagers, Lucille becoming the ghost of Allerdale Hall, playing a piano for eternity, and the end credits imply that Edith has written a novel based on this experience titled Crimson Peak. Is that a decent whiz through the summary, Sam?
That's a very, very in-depth whiz through the summary. Good job.
Actually, do you know what? Crimson Peak is still really, really new to me. I've only ever watched it twice. And the first time I watched it, I wasn't a fan. I think I just got lost in all the story. And if I'm honest, I mainly watched it for Tom Hiddleston, who we'll talk about. But I watched it a second time in preparation for doing this episode. And I loved it. And I don't know if that's because I'm older now and I can appreciate it a little bit better. And also the fact that I have been diving into Gothic horror. So I picked out some stuff that maybe I wouldn't the first time round. But when was the first time you watched Crimson Peak?
10 years ago when it came out in the cinema.
Oh,
I
really?
was day one. I remember I was already a Del Toro fan. And I remember seeing a trailer for it and just being like, oh my gosh, yes. So me and a friend that I used to work with, we finished work early, went to the cinema at 11 o'clock and would ow, my cat just bit me. That's rude.
We're both being plagued by cats, by the way, on this episode.
He's been demanding pets, and as soon as I stopped petting him for a second, he bit me. That was very rude.
A mood.
No, we went to the cinema. There were only us two in the cinema, I think.
Oh, wow.
So we had the whole screen to ourselves, and I remember just sitting there, just being like, "Oh, this is beautiful. It's such a beautiful film
Mm.
and story." So yeah, I've loved it for a long time.
And how many times would you say you've watched Crimson Peak?
Probably maybe 10
Okay.
times. It's one at this point that I can sort of put on in the background and don't need to pay like huge amounts of attention to. I can just see the costumes and the ambiance, I guess, and like just immerse myself in it. It's just
Mm.
beautiful.
It is a stunning film, definitely. Um, how would you say then it fits into Gothic horror? What do you think about it fits with the Gothic genre?
To be completely honest, I'm not like massively au fait with the individual like parts of what makes a Gothic horror, but listening to your first intro episode, I learned loads of stuff, like the Gothic architecture being the
Mm,
inspiration and stuff. I didn't know that, so it was really interesting. But I think the it's a Gothic romance, and I think a lot of people say it's not a horror film, because ultimately it's a Gothic romance.
mm,
Um, and I think that's a really key part of it. But the ghosts that are always present throughout the story, whether they're in the house or not. I feel like that's a really key part of it. And then just the music, the visuals, the costuming, I feel it fits very beautifully within what most people think of as Gothic. I can't profess to know like the right answer for that, but
no,
it feels like a Gothic film to me.
I agree. And like, I love Gothic horror generally, which is why I chose this subgenre as the first one to delve into. I'm absolutely not an expert when it comes to the genre, and I've found myself learning things as I go along. But you're right. I think I picked out, it's a period piece first of all. So, which Gothic horror does tend to be the fact that we're set right in the turn of the century, which I really like. Sleepy Hollow is set at around about the same time, I think. So you've got very similar vibes there. But the house itself, like all of that architecture, the like Crimson Peak is foreboding. It's very grand and almost becomes a character in itself. Like the film is called Crimson Peak, and
Mhm.
it's sinking into the ground, and Thomas is trying to revive it. So I like the fact that we've got this house that has become a set piece as well as a character in the film. Um,
I think that's quite common with Gothic
mm,
pieces as well, isn't it? Having that location being such a big part of the story.
yes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and I find as well with these Gothic horror pieces where you have architecture that is such a focal point of the film, I feel like you couldn't then lift that story out of that setting and apply it elsewhere. You have to have a setting like that being such a prominent part of the film. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be the same. I don't think it'd translate the same, the story.
Honestly, I forget about a lot of the parts of the film that aren't set at Aldale Hall.
Mm,
Like as you were going through the recap, I was like, oh, I forgot about that bit. And like with lots of films, I've got the timeline of the film in my head, and the
yes.
stuff that doesn't take part there almost doesn't exist because it doesn't feel part of the bigger story. I know that sounds really weird, but like the heart of the story is in that house for me. So that's what I
Yeah.
think of when I think of that film.
And I think when they are in the house, that's when you're truly immersed, isn't it? Because it is so, like, it's very dark, but it's so gorgeous as well, that setting. The way that it's lit, the way that it's decorated, everything. It's just stunning. Like, I would
I've,
love to live there.
yeah, and I've never wanted to live in a house with a hole through the middle of it, like where the
Yeah,
leaves are falling in. Never wanted to live in a house that dilapidated, but I want to live in Allerdale Hall. It's just stunning.
agree completely. And I really don't want a house that's sinking into the ground either, but I'd make an exception for Allerdale Hall, to be honest.
And just the little archways on the doors and oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Where all the spooky ghosts can hide behind with their little fingers and their shadows coming round the corner. Yes, please.
Ooh. That was very scary in the cinema.
I bet, because like when I got to that point, it's very Nosferatu-esque initially, with like the shadows, the fingers on the wall, and then having the hands like creeping over her in bed. No, not for me.
That
That's one of
first
my
scene, I was
worst.
terrified.
Oh, like he knows how to do a horror, doesn't he? Bless him, Del Toro.
No, bless him. He's a good eggy.
I read some initial reviews actually after some early screenings from some fellow iconic horror writers. Stephen King was one of them, and he described the film gorgeous and just fucking terrifying, and he said it electrified him like Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. And I just thought that was a really nice description.
Oh, that
Um,
is.
and
I
then
didn't think
his
it was that popular, to be honest. So
no,
that's nice to hear.
Stephen King's like just straight up at every single one of these early screenings. He's just released initial reviews of The Rule of Jenny Penn, which is
Oh
due to
yeah.
come out, and he said he loved it. So he gets all the invites, doesn't he? Because he's Stephen
Oh.
fucking King. So, but even his son saw Crimson Peak, and he described it as Del Toro's blood-soaked Age of Innocence, a gloriously sick waltz through Daphne du Maurier's territory. And I didn't know the name Daphne du Maurier until I started doing this Gothic subgenre, but she wrote Rebecca,
Hmm.
which Alfred Hitchcock then turned into a film, and he adapted also her novel The Birds into the film. So like just all these little Gothic references made me really happy when I was reading about Crimson Peak, because I can pick up on it on screen, but then when you actually start digging into the film and seeing where some of the inspiration come from, it's nice. But the other thing that I picked up on, which is a nice cheeky nod to Gothic horror, we've got the name Cushing in the
Hmm.
film, and obviously we have Peter Cushing, the horror legend that is. He was in many, many Hammer horror films, and I'm kicking myself for not having covered any Hammer horror films as part of this series. But like you and I know, Sam, we went to a Hammer screening in London, and their back catalogue is enormous.
It's intimidating of like where to start. I've seen probably four or five,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, okay, they were great. Where to next? And then I
Yes.
watch Crimson Peak again instead because
Yeah.
it's easier to go to something I know rather than such an intimidating back catalogue.
I know, and I thought if I start down the route of Hammer horror, then I'm going to get people piping up and going, well, what about this film and what about that film? And I'm such a people pleaser that I thought it's better not to touch Hammer at all and just put a statement out saying, I bloody love Hammer. I'm not going to talk about it rather than disappoint anyone. But anyway, I thought it might be quite good to get into some of the details of the film, because I think that's what really makes the film as brilliant as the story is, because it's a real classic ghost story. I thought it'd be good to talk about some of the cinematography, the sets, the costuming, the sound design, all of that gorgeous stuff that makes us enjoy this film. What's your views on some of those details?
Oh, just where to start? Like
Mm.
the costuming is always the first thing that like pops into my brain. I don't know if they exist, but like I would love a big coffee table book of all of the costumes
Ooh.
of this film, because it would just be so pretty, and the
Mm.
sets and oh hello, this is Godzilla. Um, my cat's popped his head in for anyone listening.
Oh.
Um, it's just I want to look at every single detail. The costuming is fantastic. And I thought, oh, I'll have a little nosy round at some information when we said about doing the podcast,
Mm.
because I thought, well, I'll do some research, even though that's very unlike me to do research. And the difference in the costuming between Lucille and Edith, I found really interesting,
Okay.
um, which I hadn't picked up on. I'm not au fait with fashion of Edwardian and Victorian times, but apparently there's very differing styles. And if you look at Lucille, she's got very Victorian tailoring, and Edith has very Edwardian tailoring to show the
Oh,
difference of Lucille is hard up for money. She can't afford to be going out and buying fancy new dresses. She's just got the dresses from when she did have money and was more
mm,
affluent. So she's got more form-fitting style dresses that were more sort of demure of the Victorian times. And then you look at Edith and she's got huge poofy sleeves and big
yes.
fancy, whatever these things are called, but I'm
Like ruffs
slightly,
or yeah.
there we go, and like bows and things. And that's more ostentatious and indicative of wealth and being a bit more showy. So like that makes perfect sense
Yeah.
when you look at it like that, but I haven't sort of picked up on that throughout the film as being a very obvious, she's poor, this
Mm,
is her style of dress. She's rich, this is her style of dress. So there's so many things that like they put into the costuming and the detailing. Like there's obviously going off on one about stuff, but there's throughout the film there's the repetition of the imagery of like a moth and a butterfly.
yes.
If you look at the costumes that Lucille wears, they represent that moth type thing. So
Oh,
she's got a lot of dark colours, velvety fabric, soft, velvety, dusty looking fabrics. And then, oh, what's her name? I forgot her name. Edith has got
Edith.
bigger,
Yep.
more colourful, flouncier, fluid,
Like a
flowing, much more like
butterfly.
a big butterfly. So there's just, I love that so much effort gets put into costuming and stuff. It's just, oh, I love it. I want
That's
to
such a good detail.
crawl into a book and just read everything about the costumes because they're just beautiful. And I
If
want the yellow dress that she wears.
oh yeah, I love the yellow dress.
And I'm not a yellow girly
No,
at
neither am
all,
I.
but I want the yellow
Yeah,
dress with a
yeah.
big poofy sleeves.
100%. I am not a yellow girly, never have been, never will be. But that dress, I'll make an exception. I'll dye my hair yellow to match it.
It's beautiful.
I had never picked up on any of those details with regards to the costumes, but I love that now. Like, that makes me appreciate the film so much more, knowing that.
And I think
Um,
it's stuff that you're aware of throughout the film, but
mm,
not explicitly so. And then you read those little details and you're like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Like, and that's why I love films like this, that they've just put so much effort into costuming,
yes.
into, like I said, the sound design and the cinematography. There's effort put into everything, and there's all these little things that people have put effort into. And it's not just the story and the actors and the main things. There's all these other little things that help tell the story. And I think that's probably quite indicative of Gothic horror as well, of it not just being what you see, well, it is what you
Yes.
see, but not just black and white. There's all these little things as well hinting towards stuff. So I just find it fascinating.
Always deeper meaning, isn't there? Like, yeah, because I'd noticed the difference, but I just thought that was just a difference in taste between the two women rather than it having any sort of reference to styles of the time and it having any meaning to wealth versus not having money. And also that like the butterfly moth thing is so obvious now you say it. Never would have picked up on that ever.
I think there's even a little line somewhere in the film that describes Lucille as a moth.
Oh,
But it's not, it's one of those things that you might pick up on. And to be honest, it's something I picked up when I was reading about it, that
yeah.
it said about it echoes this. And I was like, oh yeah, they mentioned that. But it's just part of the bigger storytelling. And then all these little details start to like join up. It's lovely.
Yes, come together. Oh, God. Well, if there is not already a coffee table book for Crimson Peak on the costuming alone, there needs to be. Even just being able to have some more of that kind of detail, because guaranteed there'll be more to it than just that. Um,
Mm.
I even love the way that Thomas looks in this film, and that's not just because I'm an enormous Hiddleston fan. I just think I love his costuming. He looks so lovely and smart and well to do all the
Everyone does
time.
look very dapper.
Mm,
Everyone
very.
looks lovely.
This is like my favorite Hiddleston look as well. Like most of the reason why I love Tom Hiddleston is because of Loki in Marvel Universe. But
Mhm.
like the black hair, I think I said on the Sleepy Hollow episode, I've got a real thing for either big guys with beards and tattoos and they look like they could rugby tackle me, or polar opposite, Johnny Depp in Sleepy Hollow, Tom Hiddleston in Crimson Peak, these lanky, greasy, dark-haired gentlemen that would read me poetry.
Yep. When I listened to that episode, I was like, same, I
Yeah,
get you.
can
That's
relate.
my two types of blokes too.
Yeah.
And I do like a little sickly, like posh Victorian wafy looking boy
Yeah.
like Thomas Sharp. He just looks like he just wants a good meal and a
Yes.
little blanket and a book.
And we'll
He just needs
dance by
looking after, doesn't he?
candlelight. Yeah.
The candle dance.
The candle dance is stunning. Absolutely stunning.
Amazing.
I read online that apparently they danced with the candle lit the whole time and it didn't go out.
Hmm.
That is so cool. Wish someone could whiz me round a dance floor with a candle, to be honest.
Like dancing makes me like I get like third hand embarrassment for people when they dance. Like I find it really
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I know it's a tism thing, but I'm like, why are you doing that?
Yes.
But that scene, just the choreography and just how like, and I think because I know that they did that,
Mm.
they really choreographed it with a candle and everything. That's one of the few like dance scenes in a film where I'm just like, oh, it's so lovely and it's just
Yeah.
so romantic. And obviously there's so many like unromantic, awful things in that film, but I'm still like, oh, they danced, it's so nice.
I like that we have these lighter moments throughout the film, like the dance scene that lift it out of that darkness. Because Del Toro does do dark very well in
Oh,
his films, and it's partially why I love him. But just being able to add in a scene like that, a dance scene, and it not feel out of place, it feels perfectly placed with the story, with the setting. Um, I think is
I
very
think he does
clever.
whimsy very well. I,
Yes,
I don't think it goes into the realms of dark fairy tale to the same extent as something like Pan's Labyrinth,
agree.
but
Yeah,
there's that fairy tale whimsy to the Gothic romance, and I just think that's like the perfect example of that little bit of whimsy in all the darkness.
I know.
And just seeing like Lucille glaring at them across the room.
Yeah.
So you still got that darkness and the like malign intent going, but there's just this lovely little thing happening over there. It's just lovely.
Nice little moment with
Yeah.
Doom lingering in the corner.
Before all the other stuff
Yeah.
happens.
Totally relatable. I did read online actually about the furniture that was used in the film. I don't know if you've seen about this, but there
I
were
haven't.
two sizes of furniture used for the film. So when a character sits on it or it appears in the background, it can show certain emotion. So a bigger size is to show a character's weakness and tenderness, and a smaller size is to show their strength and determination. And
Yeah.
apparently everything in the house was made for the house, like nothing was reused from other films or other sets. And even though it was built in its entirety, the entire house, it had to be torn down at the end of the shoot to make space in the studio so it doesn't exist anymore. But that piece around the furniture, the fact that there's two sizes, just slightly different sizes. So then, depending on which character's interacting with it, it'll appear bigger or smaller depending on the emotion that needs to be reflected.
That's very interesting. I'm
Mm,
gonna need to go watch it again now
I
and
know.
try and see if I can pick up on the furniture.
So you can go back and watch it again for the furniture, and I can go back and watch it again for the costuming now. So now we have an excuse to watch it again. Not that we need one, but
No.
no, I thought that
Well,
was
I've
really
got the
good.
Arrow release with loads of special features on.
Yes.
So I watched it when it came out. I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I've clearly forgotten all of the stuff that was in it because I'm sure that that would have been something that was covered in it because there's some really nice special features on there. You know me in a special feature. So I must have forgotten about that. That's really interesting.
Is this the Arrow release with the incredibly gorgeous cover on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, very
That's my
pretty.
second copy of that now. I had just the basic DVD and then they did the 4K release and it's even more beautiful. You need
See,
to buy it. It's lovely.
I didn't even have a copy of it before at all. In fact, hang on. I went to
Yeah, I'm on my.
CEX and I got a stack of DVDs,
Ooh, yay.
and in there for £1.50,
Oh,
Crimson Peak.
I feel a bit offended on behalf of Crimson Peak that it's only £1.50.
I was surprised it was so cheap, to be fair. So immediately I was like, well, I'm going to have a copy because I didn't have a copy before. So I was quite pleased that I can now add that to the collection.
No, I keep upgrading. I had a basic Blu-ray, that one, and then I got the Arrow one, then I got the Arrow 4K because I've just got to keep upgrading to the prettiest version that's available every time a new one comes out.
This is like me with The Exorcist. I'm like, I've got to have every copy. I can't just have
Yeah.
one or two. I'll have to add another one to my collection then now that I've got one.
I'll have to go back and watch special features because I've clearly forgotten loads of really cool stuff.
Right, deal. We'll both do a rewatch then.
Oh, go on then.
Yeah,
I'll
why
watch
not?
it again. Okay.
I did also read, and I don't know if this was in the special features, this is something that I read about, but Jessica Chastain obviously has quite the transformation in this film. And she had a full body cast process.
Oh.
Her head, torso, and fists as well. So I don't know if you know about that. Like,
No, unless they perhaps made one of the ghosty ladies out of her body.
I think that's what they did.
That would make sense.
Because I think the other thing that I'd read about was the fact that they tried to, wherever possible, for the ghosts, use actual people rather than
Mhm.
having it imposed afterwards, because they'd wanted something for the actors to be able to react to in the moment. So maybe that's what they did, is that they cast her body to use as a ghost in there somewhere. So then there
Maybe.
was
There's
something
obviously a
physical.
few ghosts, and if that is the case, I find that very poetic that she's already a ghost in the house
Mm,
when she's still alive.
yep.
Because she's not living a life, is she? She's
She ain't living her best
tumbling
life.
about in that house, waiting for a life that's never going to happen. So she's
No,
already one of the ghosts in the house. So that
bless
would
her.
be cool. I'm gonna have to go and look at that because that's interesting.
Yeah, because it's like practical effects in a film always get me. And so I was really pleased when I read about the fact that the ghosts were real, like they weren't CGI'd. Yes, they had some effects applied to them afterwards. Um, but
The
those red
smoky.
ghosts.
Well, I this is me like doing my normal thing and not actually checking beforehand. I am very sure that the main red ghost that we see all the time is Doug Jones.
Oh,
I will have a quick look see now, and I'm sure it is Doug Jones. Because we know
hang on, I've
GDT
got
loves Doug
IMDb up.
Jones.
It
Oh,
is
there you
Doug
go. You can look.
Jones.
Yeah. I know he's not all of the ghosties,
He
but
is,
the
yeah,
main one,
Edith's
her
mother.
mum. Hmm.
And obviously, he plays the Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth. He plays the Amphibian Man in Shape of Water. Like, he's Del Toro's poster boy, isn't he?
Yeah, another sickly, pale
Yeah.
little weirdo. I love Doug
Oh,
Jones.
oh, he needs to come to a horror convention. I'd go and give him a cuddle.
Well, yeah, because he's Billy Butcher's son, my one true
Yes.
love.
Oh, there we go.
I
Right.
fell in
So,
love with him when I was like 8, and I still love him, so I will forever love any part that Doug Jones ever plays.
so if Doug Jones is listening, Doug, love, come to the UK, please. Come to a horror convention, either HorrorCon or For the Love of Horror. We'd love to meet you and just give you a little cuddle and a little peck on the
Oh,
cheek as well, probably.
that'd be nice. But
And
when you know that's Doug Jones, you can see his physicality and just the I don't know. There's just something about Doug Jones, and he never just like sticks some prosthetics on. He's like, all right,
no,
hiya.
there's a
He,
bit of him in there, isn't there?
yeah, he's just always like, I'm obsessed with Doug Jones. He's just brilliant. And now I'm just thinking of all the other characters he's played,
Well,
like
he
in
was.
What We Do in the
I
Shadows.
was going to say the Baron. Yes,
Yeah, Baron
Ophelia.
I love him.
Oh, I love that you've picked up on Doug Jones. I hadn't realised I had IMDb open in front of me and his face was just hovering there in front of me. And I just didn't clock at all.
Well,
So,
you had your little list of like main cast and supporting cast, and I was like, Doug Jones isn't like the first supporting cast name on that list. What's going on?
I know, completely
We
just
miss
skipped
him.
over him. Soz Doug. Soz about
But
that.
now, can you see that that's him through the
Yeah,
film?
completely. See, another reason why I'm going to have to go back and watch the
And
film.
watch it again.
I know what I'm going to do this evening. So,
Be like, that's Doug.
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 Oh dear. Well, it's probably a good time actually to talk about some of that supporting cast now that we've given Doug Jones a load of praise. Rightly so. Charlie Hunnam as Dr. Allen.
He's fine.
He's fine. Like, I do love Charlie Hunnam.
I don't really know him. I feel like he's one of those handsome actor men that lots of people like because he's a handsome actor man. And I know he was in Sons of Anarchy, which I saw a
Yes.
couple of episodes of, and I was like, I don't think this is for me. But I don't know him, so he's just Alan, which is not the sexiest name for a sexy, like, hero man in a film.
No.
Just like, oh, it's Alan, here he is. Hi, Alan.
Well,
It's not that sexy.
and he is set
But he
to
is
play
handsome.
Ed Gein as well in upcoming
no.
Monsters program this year. You know, the Ryan Murphy programs where they've covered Dharma and the Menendez brothers. Ed Gein's the next one, and he is playing Ed Gein, so he
Can
won't
we
be
stop casting very handsome people as very terrible people, please?
Agree. Like Zac Efron as Bundy.
That upset me so much because I was like, well, I fancy Ted Bundy now, but I didn't. I fancied Zac Efron as Ted Bundy, but that was just very problematic, and I don't like casting like that. And I do try and avoid stuff like that now. Like I didn't
Same.
watch the one with that guy that Ryan Murphy loves,
Evan Peters.
Yeah, didn't watch that because he's hot, and I don't want to fancy the one he was.
I don't fancy Evan Peters, so I felt quite comfortable watching him in that, and I really did not fancy him as Dharma. But I do have a thing for Charlie Hunnam, so I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to watch the Ed Gein program because I'm just not going to be able to separate the two. Yeah, and I found that with the Zac Efron one, I was like, I had a childhood crush on Zac Efron, so when I watched the Bundy one, it was just Zac. It wasn't Bundy. It was just Zac being cheeky. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also a High School Musical girly, so like making him a serial killer. No, thank you. But I could see Charlie Hunnam having like the screen presence to be a good, scary serial killer person. He's just too handsome. Ed Gein wasn't a looker.
No, and I've yet to see him like done up as Ed Gein as well. I think if I can see a photo of him and if he looks unrecognizable, like if I cannot see Charlie Hunnam in him as Ed Gein, fine, I'll watch it. If there's even a whiff of Charlie Hunnam there, I'm not going to be able to watch it.
I think we're probably hoping too much that it would be given that treatment. Especially if it's Ryan Murphy. I love Ryan Murphy stuff, but there's all sorts of little problematic bits like that in there.
Yeah, and he does like using the same people over and over as well, doesn't he? Well, fair play to Charlie Hunnam. Like, best of luck with your Ed Gein programme. You were all right in this, but nothing to necessarily write home about.
No, he's likable, and I do root for him rescuing Edith. I'm like, oh, come on, Alan, you can do it. And like, bless him, the moment where he like the stabbing bit, and I'm
In
like,
his
oh God, love
armpit as
him.
well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, he's trying so hard, and he obviously loves Edith very much, but just a bit meh. He's
Yeah.
not, he's not Thomas, is he?
He's not the bad boy.
No.
I did write down another name, Bern Gorman, just because I am such a Bern Gorman fan. So if I ever see him in the cast list for anything, no matter how forgettable he is or how small a role he has, I'll always just mention him in the
See,
hopes.
I didn't know who he was.
Oh, he's so
I saw his
strange.
name on the list and I was like, I don't know who that is. And I saw the character name and I was like, I don't remember that character. So I had to Google pictures of him in the film and I was like, oh, he's the detective. And again, because that doesn't take place
Yeah.
in Allerdale Hall, I forgot about it.
Yeah, he's been in so many different films. Like he was in Beetlejuice from last year. He played the priest in the church right at the end. I fell in love with him in the Pacific Rim films because he's quite odd and strange, but he never really has like a huge role in anything. It's always very much a supporting role, but I just think he plays typically in films the border between being quite sweet, but also there's something really sinister there. So yeah, I always just like to give Bern Gorman a little nod whenever I see his name.
Well, I did notice he has been involved in quite a few Del Toro productions. So I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to go and like pay more attention. Because he's been in loads of stuff. Like you said, I just don't recognize him.
No, he is quite unrecognizable, but he also has this look about him where even if he's playing someone nice on screen, you just think he could turn at any point. You know, like a wild dog or something. I think I've just got a bit of a love for him because of that.
Aww.
I know.
This is cool when you're like a wild dog.
Yes. That could be the subtitle for this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh dear. I think probably the main one to mention, who is technically supporting cast, but like she really isn't. She's one of the leads, really. There's 3 leads in this film, but it is Jessica Chastain as Lucille. Give me your thoughts on her.
Well, this is a weird one because every time I think about this film, I go, Eva Green is the sister. And then I look and I'm like, no, it's not. It's Jessica Chastain.
Yeah.
And every single time I watch the film, I'm like, oh, that's Jessica Chastain. And when I look at IMDb, and I will put money every single time on it being Eva Green is the sister. And this has happened for 10 years. And like, I love Jessica Chastain. She's incredible in everything I've ever seen her in. But that's not Jessica Chastain. She looks so different. The performance is so different to other characters I've seen her play that she's like scary, intimidating Eva Green in my head.
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, I like that. Like, they're both beautiful women. Give me scary, goth, intimidating ladies any day. Great. But she disappears into that role and I don't think of it as Jessica Chastain at all, which is a compliment, I guess. She's just so calculating and every single second she's on screen, she's planning something.
Yes.
When she's being nice, she's not being nice. Just everything is so malicious with her. And I love her. Her outfits are amazing. She is a queen.
Yeah.
She's not very nice to Edith, but if I was going to side with one or t'other, I'd probably side with Lucille because she plays the piano and wears nice dresses.
I was going to say, if you were going to play either character, you were going to play Lucille. Like, she's definitely the more interesting one out of the 2, isn't she? Plays the piano, fit brother, got a nice house, just needs some money to fund it. And that's all she's doing.
living the dream.
Yeah, she just wants a nice life. She's got the man, she's got the house. She just needs some funds. Bitch's got to get paid, and that's what she's trying to do.
She could be a concert pianist. She's a very talented pianist.
Well, and I'm sure I read, again, I've done some reading for this film, that she learned to play the piano for this.
Oh wow, I just assumed she could.
No, specifically because she'd learned to play guitar in something else.
Mama?
Mama, yes.
She's
So,
fit in that.
oh, yeah, she is, to be fair.
I love goth Jessica Chastain.
Yeah. We need more goth Jessica Chastain.
We do.
But Del Toro was the producer for Mama as well, so
Mm.
he's clearly seen her in that. But yeah, learned bass guitar for that, and then learned the piano for this. Like, can you not be so
She's
talented?
clever and beautiful.
Yes, she is.
At least be ugly if you're going to be that clever.
Yeah, exactly. Give the rest of us some hope, please.
Exactly. But
But
she's wonderful. I think she's incredible.
I agree. And you're right. She does just completely disappear into that role. I can't compute Jessica Chastain as Lucille. It shocks me every time I look at IMDb or if I look at any cast listing for this film, and I'm like, but it's not Jessica Chastain. And I don't know who I think it is. Eva Green is a really great shout.
She reminds me of Eva Green in Dark Shadows.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I see in my head. So whenever I picture the film, I see Eva Green in Dark Shadows.
Great shout.
But I think it's just because she's been taken away from her red hair and it's so iconic for her that she just doesn't look like herself anymore. And that's so dumb to be like, put a wig on her and she's a different person. But this different person to me is really strange.
I think that's true of a lot of actors and actresses who are redheads, actually, because you do associate their red hair, like it's iconic for them.
Mm.
And I think she's one of those where if you change the hair, it just doesn't look like her. It's like you're blinded by the fact that she's got a different hair color. It's really bizarre.
That's a little brain.
No. The other two people that we need to talk about, we've got our two leads. So I'm going to say this name wrong. I say it wrong every time I say it. Mia Wasikowska and Tom as Thomas. Very inventive with the names there for Tom Hiddleston. And I knew this. I didn't read about it, but I knew that they weren't the original cast members, that it was Benedict Cumberbatch and Emma Stone who were originally cast, but they dropped out of production. It was all very like shady why Benedict Cumberbatch had dropped out of production, and he, when asked about it, he was like, ask Del Toro, he'll know about it, and just wouldn't answer it.
Sarah with the drama.
I know, exactly. But I think it was only 2-3 days afterwards that Tom Hiddleston then signed on the dotted line and said that he was going to do it, and he asked for Benedict Cumberbatch's blessing before he did that, knowing that something had gone on. And Cumberbatch was like fine with it. He said it was amazing that if anyone was going to replace him, it was going to be Tom Hiddleston. But I just can't imagine Benedict Cumberbatch in that role.
See, I can. I find them completely interchangeable.
Really?
They're both the handsome, foppish, bumbling, handsome British man, and they can, you could lift Hiddles out and put Cumberbatch in and it'd be exactly the same film.
True.
So I'm very sorry.
Maybe.
But that's because I think Benedict Cumberbatch is amazing as well, so I think he'd do a great job.
I do love Benedict Cumberbatch as an actor. Both me and Will watched fairly recently. We were so late to it, but The Imitation Game, and immediately it's become like our neurospicy brain's favorite film, like comfort film, which that type of a film really shouldn't be, but it has. But I just don't. I think the reason why I can't imagine Tom Hiddleston being replaced with Benedict Cumberbatch is I don't find Benedict Cumberbatch attractive. And that's my own selfish reasons.
Again, to me, they look really similar as well.
Really? Okay.
It's really, really strange. I think if you were going to say pick one of the two you were going to run away with, I'd run away with Thomas Sharp. but I feel like
Yes.
they both have that similar look. I
Mm.
think just maybe
Like build and
Benedict's
kind of,
taller,
yes.
but they look very similar to me
Hmm. Well,
because
either one.
they haven't got a beard, or so they're either the wafy goth or the big beardy guy. So they're the wafy goth.
True.
They're both the same.
They both fall into the wafy goth category. Maybe that's how we need to categorize men from now on. Is, like people can categorize either rats or frogs. Have you heard about that?
No.
So this is where you can look at someone and you can say that they're either a rat or a frog based on the way they look. Not in a, like, it's not meant to be horrible, but just their face shapes. So rat is obviously a lot more pointed features, and frog is a little bit flatter.
Am I a rat or a frog?
Uh, I think both me and you are frogs.
Because I think I'm like quite pointy. Like my chin's quite pointy,
Yeah.
and my nose is quite big.
Maybe
But
maybe
I think I've got frog vibes because
yes.
neurodivergent froggies.
We love frogs.
Queers love frogs,
Yep.
neurodivergents love frogs, neurodivergent queers fucking love frogs.
Love frogs.
It's true. It's just
There we go
science. I
then.
didn't make the rules.
But now you'll be able to look at people and go, are you a rat or a frog?
Oh, I've missed this. This is obviously some weird section of TikTok that I'm not on.
Yeah, you're not on the deep side of rat versus frog talk.
I'm just on Nosferatu TikTok, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, same.
That's all I've got in my feed is great.
We'll try and exist in that space for as long as bloody possible.
Yes.
Oh dear. Anything.
Hiddles, no, he's great. He's great. We love him.
We do love him. He's very, very charming in this, as he is in most films, to be fair. Like, even when he plays Loki in the Marvel films, I totally fall for him because he's very, very charming and
Oh,
well
he's a little shit,
spoken.
isn't he? But
Oh,
he's
yeah, but
lovely.
love him. Like, he's a little scamp.
Imagine, if you will, being me and my friend who both thought Hiddles was cute in the cinema, and then nobody else being there, huge giant screen, and then you being sat there and going, "Oh, it's his bottom on the screen." We were very excited. There was a very close-up big picture of Hiddles' bottom on the screen, and we were like, "Oh, okay."
Well, seeing as this is 10 years old this year, maybe we can hope that there'll be a re-release at the cinema, because there's been a lot of that
Ooh,
recently, like
yeah.
anniversary screenings. So if there is a 10th anniversary screening, Sam, I'm coming to join you so we can see Hiddle's bottom on the big screen. That'd be lovely.
And it deserves to be in the cinema again because it looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful, it's
Mm.
just sumptuous is the word I think of when I think of Crimson Peak. And I know I was very lucky to see it in the cinema. I don't feel like I had huge amounts of like buzz around it when it came out, so I didn't really know loads of people who went to see it.
Yeah.
So I think lots of people missed that, and it's such a big movie that deserves to be seen like that, not on like a little piddly telly on Netflix or wherever streaming it's on at the moment. It deserves to be like shown.
Well, and I wonder with films like Nosferatu, and obviously Del Toro's got Frankenstein coming out later this year on Netflix, and then there's The Bride, Maggie Gyllenhaal's version of The Bride of Frankenstein. Like, Gothic horror seems to be pretty big this year.
Hmm.
So maybe it's a really good time actually for Crimson Peak to be shown again at the cinema, because it might attract a completely different type of audience to who would have seen it the first time round, knowing that maybe they saw Nosferatu and they enjoyed that and might be tempted to go see it.
Hmm.
So I'd like to see it on the big screen, because I didn't see it on the big screen the first time round. I think the first time I watched it was just channel surfing and saw that it was coming up, and I knew that I'd never seen it and just popped it on. So
Hmm.
I feel like I've
Well,
missed out.
I think with Nosferatu, both times I went to see it in the cinema, the crowd was a very different crowd to I'm used to
Mm.
seeing at horror movies, and loads of people thinking, what are you doing here? And you could hear through the movie that they were confused, and by the end they were confused. and I don't think they knew what they were going to see. But I think a lot of people would have like happened upon Nosferatu because everyone was talking about it. It was the
Yes.
big release, and then they've gone, oh, that was beautiful, that was interesting. What else is out there? So yeah, I think that's a good shout that like
Hmm.
it might get another release because there will be so many people who've had their eyes open to Gothic horror and been interested.
I agree.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Petition for Crimson Peak to get a re-release at the cinema.
Started
Odeon.
by me,
Yeah.
signed by me. No, I haven't got an Odeon near me. We want a different cinema chain, sorry.
Cineworld.
All the cinema chains,
All the cinema chains. We need a re-release,
all
please.
of them.
UK
Yeah,
wide and in the US. 10th
yeah.
anniversary. Crimson Peak. Make it
With
happen.
a popcorn bucket in the UK.
Oh, what
What
would
would
the
the popcorn
pop?
bucket be?
I was gonna say, what would it be?
The, the red ghosty.
I think that's probably a good shout. Yeah.
Have you seen, a slight aside, but have you seen, I think it's Le Femme Noir, I can't speak French, but they've done a collection for Crimson Peak, but they have a bag of
Yes.
um, the red ghosty lady in the archway.
Oh,
Beautiful.
stunning.
I want it.
Oh, stunning. There you go.
So
Stick
we
that
can
on
have a
your
popcorn
Christmas
bucket
list.
that looks like that.
That would be a great shout. How good would that look on the shelf as well afterwards?
We'd have to bloody get popcorn buckets first, though, wouldn't we?
Don't. I was most disappointed that we didn't get a Nosferatu bucket. Fuming, fuming. I've got an Odeon membership, and all that they had in the cinema at the time was the Gladiator 2 helmet buckets. I'm like, oh, and you could have just had
Who wanted one of those?
no one. They were on offer for £2 when I was there last week. They were trying to flog them, and even then I wasn't tempted.
What they're missing out on is getting the horror stuff. The people who are going to see Gladiator aren't buying a Gladiator popcorn bucket. The
No,
horror nerds, they want all the
all the
look what happened
merch.
with the Beetlejuice cups.
Yeah, sold out instantly. Anything else that you want to talk about? Like, is it worth us kind of rounding out on Guillermo del Toro? Because he
Yeah,
has
let's talk
got a
about
big
him. I love him.
he's got a big year as well with Frankenstein coming out. So his name's going to be mentioned quite a bit in the press, but I think this is one of his more iconic films. Like when I think of Del Toro, I think of Pan's Labyrinth first, and then probably Crimson Peak second.
Hmm.
I just think he does such a great job of striking that balance of ghost story with gothic romance. Like he's featured the set and heavily, so the actual setting for the film, but he's not allowed it to completely consume the film, even though the film is called Crimson Peak. He's not allowed the setting to be all consuming, and the characters still very much are the focus throughout the film. I just think
Hmm.
he's so clever at creating these different balances, and he clearly has a love for like the haunted house genre because he named things like The Haunting and The Innocents as inspiration for this film, and I was like, yeah, I can totally see that. To be fair,
And you just saying about like the haunted house thing just brought up like a little stab to my heart that Del Toro was at one point connected to doing a haunted mansion, like a Disney haunted mansion film,
oh,
and it was going to be focusing more on the Hatbox Ghost. And I'm a massive haunted mansion nerd,
mm,
and Hattie's my guy. I don't like what they did with him in the new film, but whatever. But yeah, once upon a time we were getting a Del Toro haunted mansion movie, and it was the dark like depiction of a haunted mansion that I'd always wanted. Because I love the Eddie Murphy movie. It's dumb, it's fun,
same.
but it's not what Del Toro could have given us.
No,
And I will forever mourn that. But that was a slight aside then, because you said haunted house, and I was like, haunted mansion.
I
We're
can
never gonna get
totally
it.
see him doing that. Like that would have worked so well, and he would have made it look so gorgeous as well. Like, why
I
have we
just can't
never
see
got
Disney being like, let's give that weird little freak some money to do a film, because he would have needed the license
Yeah,
from Disney. I just can't see it
no.
working out that
I'm,
way, really.
I'm
But
sure Disney do not want to touch Del Toro at all. Despite him
no,
being
but
there
what
like,
could have
gimme.
been?
I know. I didn't know
Yeah.
that at all. Like, now that makes me sad that we've never got that, because I can totally picture in my brain what it would look and feel like. I just think that's such a
Crimson Peak,
miss.
basically.
Yeah.
Crimson Peak crossed with um Devil's Backbone.
Yes.
Like they're just dark, scary, but beautiful and whimsical. And I'm just so sad now. I've just made myself sad.
Don't be sad. Well, look, let's finish on some positives then. So, it is an award-winning film. Um,
Tell me what for.
so
I actually don't know.
it won Best Horror at the Saturn Awards. So the Saturn Awards have actually just happened, actually. So 2025 Saturn Awards. Um, and it also won Best Supporting Actress for Jessica Chastain. She also won that at the Fangoria Awards. And it won Best Production Design as well.
These are the proper awards. These are the genre ones, the ones we care about, not the
Not
big
Academy and
ones
stuff
that.
like that. No. No.
That's when you
Actual.
said that, and I was like, it did. But my brain straight
Yes.
away, when you said award winning, went to the Oscars, and I was like, did it? No, the ones that matter.
No, we know that it's very rare for horror films to get their flowers at mainstream award ceremonies. So Saturn Awards, Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, they're the ones that we like because they actually know their
Excellent.
shit. So
Exactly.
there you go. So it did win some awards at least.
Yay.
Have you got anything else, any juicy little tidbits about Crimson Peak that you want to discuss?
Not juicy, but I do like the repetition of the red themes.
Mm,
Like we see the red ghost at the beginning, and then we get that scary bit with the, if I'm remembering this wrong, please correct me, but when she's down in the basement and there's all the like red pools
yes.
underneath, and then when she's right at the end when we've got the fight out on the snow, like the little wispy bits of the
Red
ghost
bits.
and like the red, like when his face gets cut and like he's got that little wispy, like his face is still bleeding when he's a ghost. Like I love how prominent the red is, and sort of jumping back to the costumey bits. Two of the costumes that um Lucille wears, the one she's all in black with like a red
Mm,
bloom on her chest, like a heart or like a wound that's
yes.
bleeding, and then the dress she wears when she's playing piano at that party. I think it was called like the blood drop dress or like the
Mm.
drop of blood dress, something like that, because it looks like a big flow of blood. So just, even though it seems so obvious to be like, they use a lot of red in Crimson Peak, it's just so beautifully done.
I
And it's so
agree.
striking against the dark colours in the house, the white of the snow. Just, oh, I love it.
I think
And you've got
again,
red lipstick on. I did think about it. I was like, shall I put red lipstick on
yeah.
for Crimson Peak? But I did put my Crimson Peak t-shirt on, even though you can't see it. I know I'm wearing it.
I'll listen. I superimposed a Sleepy Hollow on for
It's got a
Rose.
little,
I can do the
it's
same for
got a
you.
little, oh, you can just about see
Is
her.
this your scorpion tease?
Yeah, you
Ah,
can see
yeah, there
Edith's
she
little
is.
face poking out, but I'm freezing, so I've got a hoodie on, and I'm tucked in my bed. But as soon as
Oh,
I saw she had Crimson Peak stuff, I was like, well, I'm having that, I'm having that. So I've got a print on my
100%.
wall and got my little t-shirt.
You've got to add
But
it
yeah,
to the
that was,
collection.
yes, but that was an aside from the red and the fact you had red lipstick on.
I also love the red used throughout, and I think again it's another thing that we see. I think when you watch lots of Gothic horrors sort of back to back, which I have been doing, you pick up on even stuff like, oh, blood red is used quite prominently throughout. And it's not just, it doesn't just look like blood, like it is purposely made to look more rich and more vibrant because it's typically used against a really dark setting. And me and Rose talked about that in Sleepy Hollow, the fact that I think they had to use like a really pink or
Orange, was it?
orange
Yeah.
blood, yeah, in order to work with the filters that they used because they wanted that vividness of the blood. And I just love that. So rather than it just, I don't know, not being a thing and seeping into the background almost. It stands out. Lovely on the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Feel like that.
Oh, a quick thing I just thought of actually. We should probably address the fact that there is incest. I nearly said incense. Incest in the
Incense.
film. And it is icky,
Mm,
but I never know how to feel about it because I'm like, it works. They should be together. But also, he loves Edith. So I'm like, oh, I want him to be with Edith. But then I don't know who to root for.
I
And I know
know.
I shouldn't root for the incest because it's gross and disgusting. But they have a beautiful love.
They do, and I sometimes feel like that when I watch Game of Thrones and you've got Cersei and Jaime, and I'm like, oh, Jaime really doesn't need her, but she absolutely needs him, and there's a bit of me that kind of roots for them at times, but it's incest. Why am I rooting for incest?
But your lovely little friend Charles dances in Game of Thrones. And we love Charles Dance.
Any opportunity to reference Charles Dance so then I can pop a
Our
photo on the
friend.
screen. Yes, the lovely Charles.
That's all I think about now when I think of Game of Thrones is, oh, Charles Dance.
Charles Dance and
That's
how
Sarah's
I
friend.
know, and how I could not stop staring at him to the point where my sister was going, "Stop staring at him, you're going to freak him out."
No.
Bless him. Bless him. Well, thank you for that. It was nice to run through Crimson Peak. Like, I always appreciate a film much more after having talked to someone about it. And I think that then causes me to bump up the rating that I give a film, like if I can actually talk it through with someone. And I am absolutely going to go and do a rewatch now because just for the costuming piece alone, I want to go and look at it now. So thank you for that. Do you want
No
to,
problem.
in fact, before we finish, I forgot to ask you at the beginning 2 questions. First of all, we'll finish on these. What is the film that scared you the most, Sam?
Ooh. I thought it was a different question. I was getting really excited. I'm excited about it all day. Um, that's a very good question. I'm a wuss. Anything with ghosts and
Mm,
paranormal stuff scares me. So, like, I saw Insidious. I cried. I saw Paranormal Activity. I cried because I was so scared.
really?
But the most scared I've ever been, if it's a cheat question, cheat answer even, is Ghost Stories, the stage play, which
Yes.
there is a film of, so I guess I'm allowed to do that. But
Yes, you are.
I thought I was going to die. I was so frightened.
And is this the one that you've been to see again recently?
For the first time.
5th time? I've never seen it, so but seeing you
It's
post
it's
about it,
it's going to be in Sheffield, so you need to go. And I think
amazing.
maybe York.
So either York or Sheffield, I could definitely
Yeah, you
get
need to
to.
go. Yeah.
Oh,
Have you seen the film?
nope.
Don't watch it. Go see the play.
Go see the play first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. Excellent.
I
Yeah.
think it might scare you more than Woman in Black.
Oh, that takes some doing because
I know.
even that stage production of The Woman in Black gets me every time. I forget to blink, so my eyes start watering. You know, like you said, you cried at Insidious. Like it makes
Yeah.
it. That's what happens to me. My eyes just start streaming because I am so scared. So maybe Ghost Stories could be the next one.
Oh, and now I want to come up to Sheffield and be like, I'm going to
Oh,
come with you.
come and hold my hand while I'm sat in the theatre.
Yes.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, the other question that I am going to ask you, which is the one that you said you've been waiting for, which you know what's coming. What have you had or what are you having for your tea?
I don't know. All
Ah!
day I've been like, what am I going to tell Farah I'm having for my tea? Because this is an important question in life. I always want to know what people have for
Yeah.
their tea. And I think I'm going to have mashed potato and sausages and gravy and
Oh,
peas, but I can't be bothered.
that is one
So
of
I
my
might do
favourite
what I did
meals.
yesterday and just not have any dinner and then go to bed hungry and sad because I need spoons to make things.
Yeah.
But mash, it's always good. What are you having?
See,
What have you had your tea?
so I haven't had my tea yet. Whenever I'm recording the podcast, we always try and make sure that it's something quite quick and easy. So typically it's like a pizza or something like that. But because Will's away, I can't have a pizza because there's no way I'm going to sit and eat an entire pizza. So I've bought sushi. So I don't have to
Ooh,
do any cooking. It's just there, ready and waiting for me. Well, thanks for sharing your tea plans. I would go with sausage and mash, but it is
It's always a
effort.
good time.
Do you want to remind people of where they can find you online?
Or if I haven't put you off with my inane ramblings, you can find me many places. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Horror Halloween and Home. I've also got an Instagram for one of my podcasts, which is Horror Hyperfixation,
Yes.
which is the name of the podcast, where I ramble like this to myself for hours. But Zara did join me for one episode, which was delightful. And yeah, that's probably the best places.
Love it. So please do go and follow Sam on all of those platforms. Her Instagram especially is gorgeous to look at, but you also do some fantastic like film reviews, some of the behind the scenes stuff for Jitters. I'm totally hooked in. I can't wait for that film to come out. So I'm
It's gonna
glad
be
you got
so
that.
fun.
I know it looks really exciting. So if you want great stuff like that, do go and follow Sam online. I have a ridiculous amount of socials as well, so I'm going to reel them off now, Sam. At Rate Scary on YouTube and Instagram, or at Scary Zara Mary on Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. If you want to follow along, I have got a couple more episodes to cover off Gothic Horror. I'm going to round out the film side of Gothic Horror with my buddy Celebro's coming back on, and we are going to cover Bram Stoker's Dracula because he is an enormous fan. And then I'm going to finish things off with Gothic Horror by doing a ranking of the top Gothic films. So, and then I'm going to move on to torture. So it's probably a good time to ask you, actually, Sam, before we disappear, have you got a favourite torture film that I should bear in mind?
Yes.
Go on.
Martyrs.
It's on my list. Maybe I can get you to come back and talk about Martyrs with me.
Oh, don't. You'll never shut me up.
There we go. Well, you are definitely coming back on the podcast, whether it's for Martyrs or something else. So thank you very, very much for joining with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
No problem. And for everyone else, sithy with this then. I'll see you soon.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
I'll be right back.
Game over.
It's all for you!
Beware the moonlights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your number one fan.